He was the only U.S. congressman ever expelled and sent to prison for standing up to everyone, the FBI, the IRS, and the Israel lobby, which he claims costs him everything. Who was it? Former U.S. Congressman James Traficant. Take a listen to this.
I'm Jim Traficant, former congressman from the state of Ohio, the #1 target of American-Israeli Public Affairs Committee years ago. They put me in prison because they couldn't beat me with a gun and basically have destroyed my life over it. And if I have to look back, I'd have to say that they were pretty successful.
So why did the Israel lobby dislike him so much? Well, he refused to take their money during one of his political campaigns, and he also supported an elderly auto worker in his district that was falsely accused of being a Nazi camp guard called Ivan the Terrible. The Israeli Supreme Court ultimately cleared him of this. However, Jewish organizations and the Israeli lobby had a huge distaste for James Traficant after this incident. Separate from all of this, James Traficant also had a huge, pretty big mouth. Take a listen to this.
I called the members of the House of Representatives a bunch of political prostitutes. They demanded my words be stricken. They jumped up like 100 wounded TV evangelists. So finally I said, okay, I apologize. When I went outside, there was this little stringer group, and they said, tell us what you really feel, Jim. And here's what I said. I said, I want to apologize to all the hookers in America for having associated them with the United States House of Representatives. Yeah, I think it's a big whorehouse.
The guy's crazy, and his big mouth definitely played a role in making him stand out. He was also actually put on an AIPAC hit list. Yes, AIPAC has hit lists of U.S. congressmen that it deems is, quote, anti-Israel. Here's an article that was published back in 1992 in the Washington Report on Middle East Affairs. The secret section in the Israel's U.S. lobby that stifles American debate. Under lock and key are hundreds and hundreds of such files on people and organizations that AIPAC deems to be, quote, anti-Israel. Among many of these politicians are highlighted in yellow, James Traficant. However, what really sealed the fate of former U.S. Congressman James Traficant is when he started to threaten about speaking up about 9/11. Take a listen to this.
But I don't think they'd have moved on me so fast if it weren't for 911. They knew, because I'm sure they had my phone tapped all those years.
Right.
All my phones. That I started to get calls about 911, and I didn't mention what they were, and I didn't mention the names, because I can't verify it. But I was starting to get information on very powerful people who were involved and made millions of dollars on illegal arms sales to terrorist nations such as Al-Qaeda and others. Sure. We armed them. They got those weapons from America.
Right.
If you think that was bad, just wait. It gets worse, because former U.S. Congressman James Traficant started to question Israel's role in 9/11. Take a listen to this.
I have no specific knowledge of what happened in 9/11. But as a former sheriff, I always looked at one particular dynamic when I was involved with any type of an event like this. Who benefited? It put us into war in the Mideast. We whacked out Iraq. We've destabilized Iraq. And I do know this. The Israelis have had spies working the midnight oil in this country, trying to get us to attack Syria, trying to get us into attack Iran. Enough is enough now. And I think an investigation should be ensued as to who really perpetrated the 9/11 situation, because I don't believe it myself.
If nothing else made him a target to the Israeli lobby, him simply questioning an Israeli implication to 9/11 would have put a big bullseye right on his head. And he knew this. You might remember that viral interview he did with Greta Van Strassen on Fox News. Here's a small clip of it. Take a listen.
I believe that Israel has a powerful stranglehold on the American government. They're controlling much of our foreign policy. They're influencing much of our domestic policy. America is in danger if America doesn't take back the government without foreign interference.
Immediately after this, the headlines went after him. He got accused of being anti-Semitic. NBC called him disgrace. And Sean Hannity with Fox News actually got him on his show afterwards. Take a listen to this.
That's not what you said. You said they're controlling our foreign policy. They're controlling our domestic policy.
Yes, and I believe they are.
Hear me now.
I believe they control the Senate and the House Foreign Affairs Committee.
That's insane.
And they're controlling our foreign policy.
Congressman, that's conspiratorial nutjob stuff.
It literally looks like the only reason Sean Hannity brought him on Fox News is simply to disparage and berate him. However, this isn't a surprise from Sean Hannity. He's a staunch Zionist, and Tucker Carlson actually made an Instagram post recently about U.S. airstrikes on Iran nuclear facilities and who was pressuring President Trump to attack and strike Iran. The real divide isn't people between who support Israel and the people who support Iran or the Palestinians. The real divide is between those who casually encourage violence and those who seek to prevent it, between warmongers and peacemakers. Who are the warmongers? They would include anyone who calling President Trump today to demand airstrikes and other direct U.S. military involvement in a war with Iran. On that list, first and foremost, Sean Hannity, Mark Levine, Rupert Murdoch, Ike Perlmutter, and Miriam Adelson. At some point, they will have to answer to this, but you should know their names now. What's also interesting is they'll accuse him of being anti-Semitic for saying that U.S. foreign policy is being controlled by Israel and that Israel influences much of our domestic policy. Yet when Israeli prime ministers go on Israeli radio and state that they have undue influence in the United States, we're supposed to just ignore that? Take a listen to this.
And they've gone so far as having Israeli Prime Minister Ariel Sharon making a statement on Israeli radio October 3, 2001, the following: "We, the Jewish people, control America, and the Americans know it." And no one read that in a newspaper in this country. Well, first of all, right when I was running, they tried to get me $10,000 cash. And I told him, "You keep your money and I'll keep my vote." So I think I was targeted before I ever walked down there.
He's being accused of anti-Semitism for making the exact statements that Israeli prime ministers are making about Israeli influence in the United States. Yet he's at fault for making the exact same statements. He said repeatedly that the Israeli lobby ultimately threw him in prison. Here's another short clip from that interview with Greta Van Strassen.
And if you open your mouth, you get targeted. And if they don't beat you at the poll, they'll put you in prison.
James Traficant was ultimately charged with 10 federal counts related to bribery and racketeering. I'm going to make a full video on why his entire trial was a complete kangaroo court. Some of Traficant's witnesses later admitted they flipped against Traficant to avoid tax charges or prison time. One witness, contractor Richard DeTore, signed a sworn statement that the feds threatened him, stating that if he refused, they would indict him. He did refuse, and they ultimately did indict him. Take a listen to what Traficant said on the House floor.
I expect to come out here to be expelled because I think Congress doesn't like difficult positions. I've been the target of administration for a long time. None of the tapes I gave you or transcripts I gave you were introduced as evidence in court. I was able to present no defense. I was even prohibited from discussing a vendetta against me. But you know, when you put somebody in jail for the rest of their life, he's a fellow member of Congress who has been targeted, no less. You should have some evidence.
From what I can tell, there was only one other U.S. Congressman that stood up in support of James Traficant, and that was U.S. Congressman Ron Paul. Take a listen to what he said here.
I rise in support of the motion by the gentleman from Ohio. That trial bothers me. I don't accept it as a good, fair, legitimate trial. I don't think all the witnesses were heard that should have been heard. And I think some of the witnesses may well have been, quote, bribed into doing and saying certain things. When the gentleman finally gets an opportunity to come and defend himself, he gets 30 minutes? Really? And have you looked at the record that happened in Ohio? It's a stack like that?
I'm going to be doing a full video on why that entire trial was an absolute joke. So if you want to watch it, make sure to click the subscribe button below. What you need to understand is that there were actual individuals that stole evidence that could have been used to support James Traficant at his trial. And they put him in prison to suppress him. They put him in prison because people didn't want to hear what he had to say. Because powerful people didn't want to hear what he had to say. And it ultimately cost him everything. James Traficant ended up dying once he came out of prison. He died in a freak accident while he was on a farm, and his tractor flipped over on him. You can make of that what you will. I'll see you guys in the next video. Make sure to click the subscribe button below. Bye.